5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everyone to the January 18th meeting of Infrastructure and Economic Development. I call a meeting to order. Our first part of business is we'll have a presentation from a delegation on 2.1. Sorry, I should mention who the committee members are. Mike O'Connor, Gladys Blackmore, John Layers, and Mayor Jack Clayton. We'll call a meeting to order, and our delegation's 2.1. If Mr. Hayar in the appeal, would you please turn on your camera and introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. So I have Mr. here with me. My name's Rudeep Kellen, and we're both here, and we are presenting our case for our inbuilt that we constructed in Hillside. So what pretty much happened was when the grants came up, I guess there was a little bit of miscommunication in the beginning, and we applied for the grant, and we didn't realize that in there it had said that you can't start construction until your grant has been approved. But in that miscommunication, at that stage, we had only done the footing part of the construction, and the rest wasn't done anyway. So what we're trying to appeal is that maybe we could consider give a bit of a slack on that part, and then take our appeal again for the grant that city allows us for the inbuilds in that area.
Okay. We have a director online. Sorry, I can't access.
Sure. Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Just to provide a brief introduction and the appeals process for today. So I will give this a brief introduction of the appeal. The appellant Parvinder here will then have an opportunity to present, followed by a respondent presentation, which would be the Manager of Economic Development, Rebecca Dodd. There's then an opportunity for questions from the committee, which you can ask to either the appellant or the respondent. That will then adjourn the appeal hearing. The committee can then go in camera to deliberate, and then a written decision would be provided by Legislative Services. So Mr. Hayar submitted a notice of appeal to the program coordinator of the Development and Incentives Grant Program regarding funding for a residential infill grant and a municipal fee rebate. As per policy 607 and its corresponding procedure, it establishes the Development and Incentives Grant Program Review Committee as the approving authority for applications, and the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee as the authority to hear appeals. And with that, I would turn it over to Mr. Hayar, although I think he did make part of his presentation, but thank you, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hayar. Do you have anything to add to your application?
No, we pretty much it's pretty straightforward. Like what we're looking at is to just being able to access to the grant, and apologize for the miscommunication at the beginning. But once we realized that the requirement was that we should not, the construction should not have been started, but at that stage we had only done the footings, and then we had emailed back and forth with Cindy there. And but other than that, yeah, it's we're just waiting on your decision now.
Thank you. Any comments from Ms. Dodd?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. I did prepare a small PowerPoint presentation just to outline the details of the grant and the basis that the decision was made upon. And just to confirm, is the committee seeing the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just as a little bit of a reminder for council, as this policy and procedure was approved under the previous council, a quick refresher. So the grants in question today are part of the Development Incentives and Grant Program, which was launched on July 28th, 2021. Within the DIG program, as we refer to it, there are two grant opportunities, which Mr. Hayer has applied for. The residential infill grant is a $15,000 grant per lot for new construction of a single detached duplex or multi-attached dwelling within the eligible residential infill area, which I will show in a subsequent slide here. Additionally, there's the Municipal Fee Rebate, which is a grant equal to the city-imposed portions of all inspection services, permit fees, engineering fees, and planning and development fees to a maximum of $10,000 for new residential construction projects. This grant is not restricted to the residential infill area and is open across the city for new residential projects. As mentioned on the screen here is the residential infill area. We were targeting established neighborhoods with opportunities for infill. The corresponding procedure, Procedure 357, breaks down the multiple grant opportunities within Section 6, residential infill grant, as well as Section 7, municipal fee rebate, essentially the same outlines in terms of eligibility and construction reimbursement process. In order to be eligible for reimbursement, no work is to be performed until a reimbursement agreement is entered into with the city. Work that has commenced prior to city approval is not eligible for reimbursement. This is a clause that is standard across each of the grants within the DIG program, as well as our other grants and incentive programs. It is typically one of the very first things that we confirm with a project when determining its eligibility, and it's highlighted across all of our communication. Also within Procedure 357, which is what brings us here today, Section 8 highlights the process for appeals. As you can see here, the applicant does have the right to appeal a decision by the DIG Program Review Committee by submitting a request, and those requests shall be considered by the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee. The committee has the opportunity to uphold with modification or overturn the Program Review Committee recommendation. In terms of the application from AP Homes, on August 16th, we received an initial inquiry from Mr. Hayer, confirming that his project was located within the residential infill area, as well as confirming his eligibility for both the municipal fee rebate as well as the residential infill grant. Our grants coordinator reviewed the application process and eligibility with Mr. Hayer, including the stipulation that projects cannot begin until a reimbursement agreement is signed. On September 16th, Mr. Hayer dropped off a completed application with the building inspections team at the service center, which was then forwarded to economic development for review that day. Our grant coordinator emailed Mr. Hayer to confirm details of his application, including the start date of the project, which was listed as September 15th. At this time, Mr. Hayer indicated in his email that the foundation was complete. On September 21st, the Grant Review Committee, which includes representatives from the Finance, Inspections, Planning, Communications and Marketing and Economic Development departments, met to review the application. The committee chose to decline the application as per Procedure 357, Clause 6.4.3 and 7.4.3 previously outlined. Mr. Hayer was informed of the committee's decision later that day, to which he responded with stated that only the footings had been completed. An inspection of the project on September 24th confirmed that the foundation and subfloor were complete. According to our inspections team, who we do defer to on these questions, representing approximately 3 weeks of work. The committee recognized this as a project being substantially underway at this time. At this time, Mr. Hayer indicated that he would like the opportunity to appeal. He was informed that although the procedure outlines the appeal process through the IED committee, the timing was a little bit unfortunate just because council had broke for the election. So we did welcome him the opportunity to write a letter of appeal to the Grant Review Committee for reconsideration on their recommendation. We received that letter, that email on November 29th. By that time, council had been reestablished, and so we advised Mr. Hayer that an appeal should be received by the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee and recommend that he submit a formal letter to be attached to a public agenda, which was received on December 20th. In terms of the application, AP Homes has submitted an application for 103rd Avenue in the Hillside neighborhood. It is a 3-unit multi-attached dwelling. Based on the project submitted, should the eligibility conditions be met, the project would be eligible for the $15,000 residential infill grant and the municipal fee rebate to an amount of approximately $5,000. This is based on the inspection permit fees as well as the development permit. This project is a 3-unit multi-attached dwelling with below-grade basements in each unit, which impacts the amount of permitting fees. As mentioned, the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee may choose to uphold with modification, or overturn the recommendation of the Grant Review Committee. Should council choose to overturn the recommendation, there is the risk that we will see an influx of requests for retroactive grant approvals. Based on the nature of the grant and the calculations, there's a wide range in terms of what this the financial impact could be. Roughly within the $100,000 to $150,000 based on previous projects completed in 2021. Thank you. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Alderman, Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Ms. Dodd, other than the failure to halt construction, did this company meet the requirements of the DIG grant application in all other ways?
Through the chair, yes, they did.
Okay. And can I ask, being as I was not on the previous council, when was the DIG grant policy, when was the grant created? How long has it been in existence?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. The DIG grant was approved in July of 2021 and was launched for open for applications July 28th, 2021.
And how many applications have there been to this program to date?
Within the residential infill program, we've only received the one application. The municipal fee rebate, we've received 4.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lainhurst and Mayor Jackie.
Yeah. So I guess when I travel in the subdivision world, it's whatever the status of the building was, or the subdivision was, or the land was at the time of application, whatever the rules were at that time. So when he did that application, you're telling me it was confirmed that, was it confirmed that that's all he had was the footings in, or was that not, was that checked or not checked?
Thank you through the chair. Our team did do a site visit and confirmed that the foundation as well as the subfloor was complete at that time, as of September 24th, so approximately 3 days later.
But I thought his application went in August 16th.
Thank you through the chair. That was the date of the initial inquiry. An application was received on September 16th and reviewed by the committee on September 21st.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Clayton. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Berg.
Hi. Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. I guess my question is, are there any other building projects that would be open to appeal similar to this, where they had submitted partway through construction that could come back to haunt us should we approve this? or is this the only one?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, that is certainly a risk with this decision. There have been a number of other inquiries that submitted application or soft inquiries after project had already been started. As an example, around the same time, we had another inquiry from a project that had just started framing, and they were informed that they were ineligible. They have since come back and reapplied with a different project. In terms of the numbers, there have been a little bit difficult to pin down. There have been 45 additional residential building permits issued since the beginning of August throughout 2021. The stipulations of the grant limits the program to, limits the grants to 2 grants per builder, which would calculate us out to about $100,000 to $150,000 in potential for appeals for retroactive grants.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Dodd.
Councillor Laters?
I'll go back to August 16th. What was the applicant told on April 16th? Was he told that he would be ineligible because he had the footing in the ground, or what was the conversation like? Did he was he informed of that and hence not put the application in, or did he just choose not to put the application in until September because he just didn't get around to it? There's a little bit of difference in that, I think.
Thank you. Is Council Lainers looking for a response from administration?
I'll take it from, well, maybe I'll ask the applicant. What was your discussion like on August 16th, and why did you wait till September to make your application, knowing what you did, if you did know what you do, if that makes sense?
I think that's what happened was, talking on behalf of Mr. Pravinder here, so that could have been a miscommunication in the language. There could be a language barrier. So when he came in and inquired about the grant, I'm not Pravinder, so I'm just talking as he's with me right now. Yeah, I'm kind of translating and then kind of talk. So, but I think when he came in for when he talked to the person at the office, and then he came back, I think that's where the miscommunication and that happened. And then I guess the understanding that he came in was like, oh yeah, you can get a grant, and then all right, we'll come in and then we'll start the construction. And then after that, when we dug more into the details, I think that's kind of when it realized, and that's the point that we had already begun the construction. And then that's where the application too, that we, in the email, we said, I think it's just because there's a communication gap that kind of got us into the situation. That's what we're kind of feel like, if you could just consider that as one of the reasons that happened. And just honestly, that's pretty much what happened, was just a lot of miscommunication and language barrier.
Yeah. Ms. Dodd, do you remember the conversation at all that was happening? Was he told that he'd be ineligible in August?
Thank you, through the chair. So the conversation took place with our grants coordinator on August 16th. I do know that this conversation is very standard. It is one that she has with all of our applicants. And the first piece of eligibility is that the project has not been complete. It is part of our process to confirm that projects have not started yet. So I am, as far as I am aware, the appellant was advised of this on August 16th. I believe the development permit was applied for after this. So at the time on August 16th, as far as our understanding was, the project had not started, and therefore he was still eligible. The development permit, I believe, was applied for on August 20th, and then we received the application on September 16th. So between those dates is when the project likely started.
What is the approval time from the day that someone submits something to getting the okay from the city?
Thank you, through the chair. Our turnaround times, we strive to be 2 weeks or less. Typically, it is significantly less than that. Typically, we're aiming to turn around within a week, but at the minimum, we aim for 2 weeks or maximum.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Hare, for your presentation. We will now adjourn, and you'll be notified of the decision by which department? Legislative Services will deliver the decision in 7 days. So we'll now go into camera.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Mayor Clayton that we go in camera. Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Yep. I get my camera to work. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties there. We've come out of camera, and we're going to propose a motion to postpone to legislative services for some clarification on this group. So we will let you know. We may be inviting you back in 2 weeks. Sorry. And Ms. Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I would move that this matter be postponed, this decision be postponed to the Infrastructure Committee meeting held February 1st in 2 weeks, as the committee has some questions that they need answered before we can provide an opinion.
Chair O'Connor.
Yes, thank you. Call a question.
Sorry, no, before you do that, fine, we'll vote on the motion, but also I think some of those questions may be asked here today to
Okay.
administration and potentially the applicant to able, in order to give us information for
Okay.
coming back for that decision. But,
Council Laners has some questions.
sorry, you can do your questions after we vote
Yeah, unless we want to add the questions
on the motion.
on the motion as a friendly amendment. Okay,
Is your mic?
fair enough.
Yeah, I just don't think we need the questions in the motion because they're not material to the motion.
Okay. So call a question.
Councilor Lindner's in favor. Nope, there we go.
Yes, this motion, I don't see it on my screen. It's carried unanimously. And so we will be inviting you back at a later time. Thank you very much, Mr. Parvinder. If you wish to continue to watch the meeting, please turn
No.
your...
Don't send them away.
No.
Questions.
Don't send them. Okay. Sorry, jumped the gun. We have some questions for you, Mr. Parvinder.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there, but he's... Can you turn on your mic, Mr. Parvinder? Mr. Hader.
Yes.
We have some questions from council for you.
Okay.
Okay. This is Councilor Lahners speaking, and so I guess I have 3 questions, and it pertains to the discussions in, I'll say, August 16th, as I understand when the call was, give or take a day or two. So I'll break them down. What were your general recollections of the conversation?
I cannot remember. I called for, I heard somebody, and then I called for city, and then I understand for, sorry, cannot speak very well, and because my partner, I thought his meeting is done, and he's gone, and so I understand is then we apply the permit, and that time is there's the same department doing everything, and I apply the permit, and then I call for about that grant, and I understand is then is my project is all is complete, then they issue the grant.
Okay. Did they tell you that you couldn't start your project prior to asking for a grant?
No, that one is miscommunication. So I thought it's the same department. Then I apply it, so they already know for everything.
So you assumed that with the building permit was an automatic application to the dig grant?
Yes.
Okay. At the time that you had this conversation on August 16th, had you had any work completed yet? Was your footing in the ground, your basement dug, anything in the ground yet?
No, because that's a very old house, and we demolition the house and we're going to back and forth for city. So just only for footing is done that time.
So on August 16th, when you called, the footing was in the ground. The house was demolished.
Yes.
And the house, yes, okay. And
Yeah.
nothing else was done.
No,
Okay.
because after that one I never stopped work, but it still is work is going, and now house is almost is complete. I hopefully is total house is complete for next month, end of next month.
So as far as you remember, no one at the city said, well, don't bother starting, your footing's in the ground. Don't bother making application, your footing is in the ground. No one said that?
No, nobody cleared that one.
Okay. That's all I have for questions.
Mayor Clayton?
Thanks. Thanks for coming today, Mr. Hadar. I'm curious, as you mentioned, there's a bit of a language barrier. How did you learn about the Development Incentive Grant?
Because my another partner, and he's heard about, and he called me, and then he said just talk to city, and then I call it, because I already built for 2 or 3 same triplex in the same subdivision. So I applied for that one. It's first time I heard it, and I applied for first time.
So, if I may, Chair O'Connor, can you tell me then, you spoke to administration at the city a couple times regarding this grant, is that correct?
Yes.
And so there was a language barrier. So did you have anyone else on the phone calls with you when you had inquiries about this money?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Mostly I'm coming at development.
Did you
No
have
further questions, thank you.
no further questions? Okay.
However, when appropriate, I have questions for administration.
Okay. Do you want to do that now? Or?
Ms. Lee, still with us?
Hi, yes.
Thanks. I guess question for Director Glavin first. There is some additional information that I think committee is looking for. I'm assuming you want those in a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Ideally, it would be captured in a motion, but so long as we know, we can make sure we have it for next committee meeting.
So a question for Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee, if a motion is put forward to, for a couple things, to get a better recollection of the time frame and the conversations that happen at each date, is that possible to your knowledge based on whomever in your department spoke to the individual? Would you be able to present committee with a time frame and a brief synopsis of the conversations that happened on those dates?
Thank you through the chair. The majority of the communication happened via email. The initial inquiries came in via phone conversation. So I'd be happy to provide a synopsis of that.
Okay, so I'm hearing from Legislative Services that it's not required in a motion. So Ms. Lee, for the next meeting on the motion that was passed to postpone it, could you please bring, as best as possible, recollection from the employee that spoke to the applicant, the conversations that happened based on each time that the applicant and the administration spoke? And then I had one question for you, Ms. Lee. Is it
Ms.
possible?
Dodd.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's Ms. Dodd.
Sorry. Ms. Dodd. Same person, just so you know.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
We allow employees to get married here. Yeah. Anyways, Ms. Dodd, could you, is it possible, in your opinion, that as this grant process was fairly new during the initial conversations with the applicant, that we weren't clear in letting the applicant know that no work could be completed prior to applying?
Thank you. Through the chair, the process in terms of the eligibility is consistent across the Downtown Incentives Program, the Economic Recovery Program, and Development and Incentives Grant Program. So our program coordinator and our team have had a significant number of conversations and worked through very similar projects, approving over 100 grants. So although I wasn't privy to that conversation, I'm very confident that that is the process that's followed and the first step of verification.
So just to reiterate what you're saying, we've been in this situation on multiple occasions where grants come in, and it's always been that no work would be done prior to any of our incentive grants, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So was my request, is that possible that you can just bring us a more elaborate timeline with a sort of a brief information so that when we go in camera next standing committee, the committee has additional information of what potentially was discussed on the different dates?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Councilor Leiners?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. I mean, maybe you did have it on your logistical timeline there. When was the building permit applied for? And secondary to that, is it customary for us to let people know, let's say for instance now or in August or September of last year, that when they mail a building permit in the particular situation that's compliant with the DIG program, that they were told that there was an opportunity to apply for the DIG grant, prior to construction? Do we do that on course, or do we hope that they belong to some organization that'll tell them, or that they're aware of the recent bylaws on the website and this, that, and everything else? Because that might be difficult for some, particularly those that aren't used to our customs or our language.
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't have the dates in front of me here. I was looking while you were speaking. My understanding is the development permit was approved on August 20th, but I can verify that. In terms of the communication, the grants were announced, communicated via social media, media release, sort of at the standard communication that we take with these projects. We did send out emails to all the contacts that we had for residential home builders within the community, and all of the information has been shared with our inspections and development permitting team. Their team does the best to try to share that information, but that's not within the regular course of permit reviews. They obviously are doing their best to help share that information and send that to economic development. We are working with the communications team within inspection services to better strengthen the connections on the website and highlight the grant opportunities on the inspection services website, rather than just directing people to economic development. Our team had made every effort that we could to make sure that potential applicants are aware, but obviously there's room for people to not find out about the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. With any further question? Seeing none, thank you, Mrs. Lee. I cannot get that right. Anyway,
Actually, I do have one more question. Sorry, Mike.
You do have one more question.
Yes, I'd like included in the questions when we're talking to the person on the phone, Corbin, I believe it was. Did the applicant tell them that they already had completed some work? And if so, how much?
Go ahead, Mrs. Dodd.
Thank you. So at the time of the phone conversation on August 16th, our understanding was that the project had not started yet. I believe the development permit was not approved until August 20th. At that time, Mr. Hayer indicated that the project was not started yet, and it wasn't until the application was submitted on September 16th that he confirmed via email that the foundation was complete.
Okay. Any further questions? What? Thank you very much. We will adjourn this part of the meeting. And thank you very much, Mr. Hayer, for your presentation. And thank you, Mrs. Dodd. We will now move on to item 3, reports. Director Service Area Report. I understand that Director Glavin has an added item. And we'll call that 3.3, and he will fill that in.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Yes, at the last council meeting prior to Christmas break, there was a request from council to bring back a status update for the Development Incentives Grants Program, which we have prepared and a short presentation for. So I'd like to be added as 3.3 and presented by Chad Sheldon.
3.1, Director's Service Area Report. Director Glavin.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. We'll start with economic development. Last week, the Economic Development hosted an engagement session at the Jackpot Grill for the Richmond Industrial Area engagement. We received quite a bit of feedback and engagement. We had, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40 people in attendance for that. And as well, there is a virtual session tonight for anybody who couldn't or did not want to attend in person that we have 20 registrants for. Economic Development also intended the launch of the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism's new brand. And moving on to grants, the previous subject here, it was a relatively quiet period over the holidays with inquiries. However, there's been quite a few inquiries in the first half of January, so the team is busy dealing with those. As well, last week they launched their latest story on Invest Grande Prairie, which was a feature on New Horizon Co-op's new local garden project. In engineering services, we've posted a number of tenders. Phase 1 of the road rehabilitation program, design and construction supervision for stormline and outfall repair program, a tender for the Range Road 53 Twin Bridge culvert replacement, as well as design and construction supervision for Range Road 64 drainage improvements. One note on road, which there is going to be some maintenance performed on 108th Street and 97th Avenue due to a valve that is leaking. If you've been in that area, you can see it up until today. Now that area is freezing and is creating a bit of we're managing a hazard in that area, just ensuring that we continue to manage the ice until the construction begins tomorrow, the excavation. It sounds as though that should be a 2-day project before southbound traffic on that section will return to normal. Moving into transportation, it's been a very busy few weeks in snow removal. Priority 1 plowing is completed. Priority 2 and Priority 3 roads should be completed by this afternoon. Progress has been relatively slow due to the volume of snow as well as the lack of snow storage. With the 3 successive snowfalls, we've had to spend some time pushing back snow along the sides of the road to create additional storage so that when the plow trucks go by, the snow can go somewhere rather than fall back onto the road, as well as a number of cul-de-sacs and some tighter areas where we've run out of snow storage and are doing some hauling activities in those areas. And some of the compounding effects on that have just been the temperature. Over the last 30 days, the average temperature has been -20. compared to what we would expect at around -12. So we're not seeing any of the snow naturally dissipating either through melting or sublimation, which just creates less and less snowfall or snow storage. And just for snow depth, the average snow depth for this time of the year is about 24 centimeters, and the actual snow depth is about 63 centimeters. So just kind of we're not getting the opportunities for storage that we normally would. We currently have all city equipment operating, as well as 28 pieces of contractor equipment between the residential program and hauling away some of the piles. This has been compounded due to some of the staffing issues that we've had over the past few weeks, with some key people being out of rotation for a variety of reasons. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, I have a comment if anybody has any questions. Seeing none, I want to compliment your department on very quick responses. We had a number of complaints for in a school zone. Equipment was there within a day. There was a street, 96th Street, that cars could not get down it, and that was dealt with last night. And some lanes that are primary accesses were handled. So kudos to your department. Go ahead.
Director Glavin, when you talked about the water leak on 108th and 99th, can you give a landmark? That's outside of Northern Metallic, I believe.
Thank you, Chair Connor. That's correct. So the location is in the southbound lanes of the 97th Avenue and 108th Street intersection. So you have TD Bank, Northern Metallic, and BMO on that corner.
And do we have some idea how long it'll take before that's remediated?
The indication we're getting is that it should be done within 2 days. However, they won't be able to complete the fix until the summer, so it'll be a temporary excavation now, it'll be replaced, and then they will have to go back in the summer to do final completion.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to item 3.2, Wood Lake Area Structure Plan, Terms of Reference. And Mr. Welton.
All right. Thank you, Chair O'Connor. I'm just going to share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. The Planning and Development Department is proposing to prepare a area structure plan for the Wood Lake area, which is in the southeast corner of the city. The area was annexed. Two of the quarters were annexed in 2016, and the other one was annexed in 2008. So no land use planning has been done for the area. The red line is the city boundary, so everything to the south and the east are in the county. The Meadowview ASP is in effect for the area to the north. We got the Fieldwork and Signature Falls outline plans to the west, and Summerside East to the southwest. The area is identified as residential in both the IDP and the municipal development plan, and so the predominant land use in this area is expected to be residential, and this area is in the long-term annexation area. The Municipal Government Act and the Municipal Development Plan both identify the requirements for content and process for developing and adopting area structure plans. This list identifies some, but not necessarily all of the requirements, basically, that need to be in an area structure plan. Of course, it includes future land use and population, road networks, servicing, municipal reserve and school sites, things of that nature. So the process will identify all of that. For methodology, the process begins with a baseline investigation, background research and review of a lot of the reports that are identified in Section 7 of the Terms of Reference. Phase 2 is to identify options and to come up with a preferred development concept that will be, taken to the public and landowners for review, and then to the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee. So once the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee has given us our input, or their input on the draft land use concept, the remainder of the area structure plan will be prepared and refined through a final engagement session with landowners and the broader community. And then once all that is done, it will be presented to City Council for adoption. I should mention, as part of the process, what I am envisioning is that there will be 3 separate engagement periods for stakeholders, the public, landowners, et cetera. One is again is part of phase 1 with the background. The second one is at the end of phase 2, and then the third one is going to be in phase 4 once the final plan is refined. And then there's the public hearing, and then of course that is a separate public process that any member of the public or landowner can participate in as well. The terms of reference identify a series of stakeholders, includes obviously landowners, city departments, provincial government departments, the county of Grande Prairie, school boards, utilities, and potentially oil and gas companies if any of their facilities are identified in the area. And for a tentative schedule, I'm anticipating that it will take approximately a year to complete. And my gut is telling me that it's actually going to be a little bit quicker than this, but it's at the same time, these things always seem to take a little bit longer than what we anticipate they're going to take. So again, we are, and I guess I should mention, because I hadn't, this is going to be done in-house, so the cost is going to be fairly minimal to the city. If items, if we do identify things that we do have to spend money on, that the funding will come from the city's or the planning and development department's existing planning document update budget. So all that being said, we are requesting that the committee accept these terms of reference so we can start the process.
Yes, we have time for a couple of questions. Councillor Lainers, yes, and then Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Mr. Welp, I'm just curious. How often have, well, I guess when did the city get in the practice of doing area structure plans for residential development in basically in the city? I know they've done some stuff out there in the new annexed area, but typically these area structure plans are driven by the developer and paid for by the developer. And so now are we setting a precedent, or is this something that we're starting to do all the time now? And if I have some land, I can just get the city to do it, or?
Sure. Certainly, that is one of the options that is identified in my report. Is that if council chooses, the city could wait for the land developers to prepare an area structure plan for this area itself. Post annexation, we did a couple of area structure plans in the northwest. The Hughes Lake Area Structure Plan and the Bear Creek North ASP. For those, we hired consultants. For the Northern Lights ASP, which was in the northeast, we prepared that in-house. And so, this would be another in-house area structure plan. Part of the process that the city has is that once an area structure plan is adopted, it's somewhat broad in the, it's very, I wouldn't say conceptual, but it's a high-level plan. And notwithstanding the city doing these ASPs, the landowners would still be required to do outline plans for individual quarter sections. And those are much more in-depth plans. They have a lot more in the area in the way of background reports that need to be done, transportation, environment, servicing, stormwater, those sorts of things. So Mr. Lainers, we have done a few. It's not a like all or nothing sort of thing. We have done some ourselves, and some we've contracted out. Thank you.
I know I would, if I was doing an area structure plan, I'd probably I'd prefer the city to do it, because they're driving the train on this. Just to be from an equity perspective, I'm always a little bit nervous because, you know, the quarters next door paid, you know, $70,000 a pop or whatever it is for an area structure plan. And these people in this case, you know, are probably going to save themselves a couple $100,000 in area structure plan fees, community engagement, all that kind of stuff. Is there any intention to apply an instrument to this property so that they will pay these fees back to the city of Grande Prairie in the future, so that they have an equivalent construction cost that everybody else in town has, so it's an even playing field?
I guess one, that has not been contemplated, and I guess second, I'm not aware of what mechanism the city could even put in place to do something like that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the order is, I'm going to let Director Glavin get in, and then it's Councillor Blackmore, then Mayor Clayton.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Just to slightly supplement the response, over the last number of years, we've been trying to, look at any opportunities we can to speed development and create certainty for developers. And one of the things that we identified as an opportunity is utilize planning capacity to do things like area structure plans, so that, if somebody is looking to do a quarter section of development, that's one less barrier, makes us more competitive with the county and other jurisdictions in attracting investment. So that's kind of the reason why we're looking at it in this light, and trying to do some of this stuff in-house in advance of a developer coming in to do that, just for expediency and trying to get investment.
Councillor Blackmore.
Well, thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Director Glavin did answer one of my questions, which is why would we make this change at this time? So thank you for that. My second question is, it looks to me when I look at that map that there's only one residence in the property, and I'm wondering if it's occupied or simply a subdivision.
Through the chair, one of the quarter sections, there has been one lot subdivided out. I believe it is like a home, is kind of sort of a homestead, I guess, for the balance of the farming operation that occurs on the site. The other two quarter sections are unsubdivided, and I believe don't have any form of development on them whatsoever. Thank you.
But my question is there still a residence? Is there someone in residence on that piece of land that is subdivided out?
I can't say 100%. I believe that is a occupied dwelling unit for the owners of the property.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm not 100% on that.
Mayor Clayton.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. So either for Mr. Weltner or Director Glavin, so the trigger for this is that we just want to have more developed land ready to be competitive with our surrounding municipalities.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Yeah, essentially, this is an area where there is development bounded on both sides. There's development on the east side in the county. There's development on the west side in the city. And in this case, there's opportunity to potentially utilize infrastructure in the area. And yes, it is an opportunity to just have more land available for when a developer wanted to develop it.
So, Mr. Welton or Director Glavin, no developers have indicated or shown the interest that they themselves wanted to do this ASP. We're just being preemptive.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Yes,
yeah.
in this case, we don't have indicated development intent from a specific developer. This would be similar to Hughes Lake or the Northern Lights area structure plan that we did in the Northeast with last council, and this is just being proactive.
Mr. Welton.
Fair enough, but the Hughes Lake land's a little bit different, as council's intent was to look at putting industrial and commercial tax base opportunities there, correct?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Yes, the focus of Hughes Lake was definitely geared towards industrial and commercial.
Sorry, Chair O'Connor, go ahead, let Mr. Welton get in, and then I'll ask to get back in the queue.
Okay, Mr. Walton, did you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
There's no motions, but just a comment. I'm not prepared to accept this terms of reference. It's not needed, in my opinion. We've heard for multiple times from the development community that we have enough land that is ready. It seems like a little bit of a make-work project to me. I'm not prepared to support a motion based on the recommendation. Thanks.
Councillor Blackmore?
Just to deal with the matter, I'd be prepared to make the motion and we can vote how we vote. So if the chair is okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Go ahead.
Okay, I move that committee accept the terms of reference for preparation of the Wood Lake Area Structure Plan.
Call the question.
I'd like to make an amendment.
This one, time out. Councillor Laners?
Yeah, I'd probably support the motion, but I'd have to see an amendment. I'd want to see that so that everything's on an even playing field, that the costs of this area structure plan be determined and potentially carried over to the first development permit or servicing agreement application made in the future. And so so that all developers are paying the same amount, it's an even playing field for all developers. And some aren't getting a free area structure plan while others have to pay for it themselves. So I don't mind doing it in advance. I agree wholeheartedly with Director Galavin's assessment that we want to speed up the process, and this just does that. I just want to create a level playing field so that all developers are treated the same.
Are you willing to, Councillor Blackmore, accept that amendment?
I don't think it's a friendly amendment. It's an amendment to I think it's probably an additional motion.
Yeah. Well, I guess it would be, it's either an amendment or additional motion, so.
I'm looking to her.
I will make a motion, but we already have a motion on the table.
There's a motion on the floor, so you're out of order.
I could add mine, I could dovetail mine in afterwards, so I'll do that.
Thank you. So we'll call a question on the motion on the floor. Hold it.
Sorry, Chair O'Connor. The original motion is to accept the terms. So if he wants to change something about that, then we need to have that as an amendment to the main motion.
Thank you. So what terms are you willing to add to hers so she can accept it or not?
I would make a motion that the development of the area structure plan to the benefit of the owners be recuperated by the city at as a condition of the first servicing agreement applied for.
CEO Galante?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be sure that as part of that amendment or that motion, because I'm not sure if we have a legal mechanism to implement this via, laycomer agreement or similar, that everybody will be affected when they develop. So we may need to do some legal research on that. If it's possible and there is a legal tool to do that, for sure we'll do it, but I'm not sure.
I'll revise that amendment. Then I will make the amendment that the area structure plan, the value of the area structure plan be assessed, and infrastructure and economic development come back with options to recuperate that prior to the first development, and what options exist.
I'm still getting the feeling, sorry, and I need consultation on this. I just feel we're talking two different things. Either we need to amend the first motion to allow for that to be taken in, or that's a separate motion is the way I'm reading it. Because you're getting down into the specifics, and this is a general motion here to accept the terms of reference.
It may be a separate motion, but it's a motion that if it's not approved, I probably won't support her motion because we're just doing freebie area structure plans. So if this motion's approved, then I support that motion. So they have to almost follow in order.
Councillor Blackmore.
I'm going to disagree with Councillor Laners. I'm not convinced that the motion that I made is going to pass to start with. And then secondly, what your motion relates to is a change of policy that affects more than just this particular area structure plan. And so it may be a motion that changes the landscape in the future, regardless of whether or not the first motion passes.
Mayor Clayton and Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks. So, based on the additional information that some of my fellow committee members are looking for, I suggest you defeat this motion, make subsequent motions looking for additional information that would give opportunity for us to come back to see if such the intent is even possible.
Yes, and my comment is I think this is one of those motions that can be referred back to ask for clarification on those very points, but I'm not sure I'm in order, so we can put the first motion on, defeat that motion, and then we'll come back to Mr. Lainers, and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Can I suggest that the motion to accept the terms of reference be withdrawn? And then we can go with Councillor Lehner's motion and then have it brought back.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're going to, Councillor Blackmore has agreed to take the motion back. We're now at Councillor Lehner's motion that sits on the table.
Okay, then I would make a motion to see if there's opportunities for the city to recuperate invested costs of the, I'm speaking slowly for a minute, invested costs of the area structure plan to be recuperated via instrument or servicing agreement conditions to create an even playing field with all other developers in the past.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that motion that's presented? We'll call the question. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Now, I just feel that the main intent of this development is missing, the main motion that Councillor, well, I know, but I just feel there's a piece missing and it's not clear. Am I correct in Director Glavin? Is this enough information for you to send back to your people?
Thank you, Director Connor. So essentially, we'll go back and gather some additional information and bring that back, and then we can deal with the recommendation at that time.
Okay, thank you. We'll, did we call the question?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. We're good. Fine. We have no correspondence. Oh, 3.3. Hope it's quick. Oh, Chad, sorry. Mr. Chad.
Okay, good morning. I will quickly try and share my screen if that's all right. Chair O'Connor. Everyone should be seeing my screen now. Yes? Yep. Okay, so I will try and be very brief. We're here today to provide a committee with a summary of the DIG program to date. And I'll start with a quick background because this has crossed over two councils here now. So in March of last year, the IED committee directed administration to consult with the Economic Development Advisory Committee and Build GP to consider a residential development incentive, as well as an industrial attraction incentive program. So So that consultation did occur. It included EDAC, it included build. We reached out to local developers and local engineering firms as well. In June 2021, Council approved Policy 357, which is Development Incentives and Grants Program policy, and the program officially launched July 28th of 2021. So the intended purpose of the program at that time was captured in the policy statement, which speaks to the grants being designed to stimulate business development, building activity, and continued local employment in the construction industry, and done through encouraging reinvestment in buildings and properties throughout the city and new residential infill development in the city's core. So to meet that intent, recall there's 5 separate incentives available under the DIG program. 3 of those, so the 3 on the left side of your screen, 3 of those were targeted towards commercial and industrial incentives. 2 on the right side, the residential infill and municipal fee rebate, were targeting residential projects. And so very quickly, I'll give you a rundown of all of those. So the new business development grant was for attraction of large-scale commercial or industrial projects. So those were $25 million and north of that. That's a 10-year tax rebate grant where 100% of the municipal portion of the increased assessment would be rebated in the first year. The second year, it would be 90%. And so there's a 10% decline in the rebate every year for 10 years. So important to note, that's not tax forgiveness. So that is when the taxes, the annual taxes that are assessed are paid, that rebate would occur after payment has been received. So the Business Retention and Expansion Grant is similar to the way that the new Business Development Grant works. That was targeting projects that were a minimum of increased assessments of $1 million and 25% increase in the taxable assessment. That one's a 4-year tax rebate, starts at 100% rebate in the first year, and then decreases 25% for each of the next 3 years. The Business Revitalization Grant, that one's similar to previous facade improvement programs that we've run. So this would be for external improvements, not routine maintenance, but improvements and beautifying buildings. That's a matching grant of up to 50% of the construction cost, and that one has a maximum value of $25,000. And then moving quickly to the residential programs, this was for the residential infill program, was for new construction of single-family, duplex, or multi-attached units. That's a $15,000 grant for any project of at least $200,000 in construction value. And it's important to note that this one's restricted to a defined infill area, which is, I think you talked about it this morning, and that's a defined area within the core. And then the municipal fee rebate, the last one, that applies citywide to single-family, duplex, and multi-attached units. And that's a municipal fee rebate to reimburse permit fees that were paid. That's up to $10,000. So again, the project moves forward as typical. Once the development fees are all paid, then receipts are submitted and we would reimburse those fees. So I will provide the funding summary, I guess, the funding that was allotted to this program. The 3 grants that were the commercial the residential and the revitalization, those were that was cash that was allocated, reallocated from a previous grant programs. So Business Revitalization Grant, Residential Infill Grant, and the Municipal Fee Rebate have a combined total of $1.3 million of available funding. Those are first come, first served, so there's not an allocation per grant. It's just the 3 of them combined have $1.3 million. And on the new business incentives, both the 10-year tax rebate and the 4-year tax rebates, we have a maximum tax rebate. The maximum allowable would be up to $9.2 million. Again, first come, first served. They share that tax rebate pot, essentially. So from a history perspective, moving right now, going right to 6 months worth of history, essentially, because the DIG program started at the end of July. We're now into January. We have about 6 months of data. So to date, we have 6 approved applications for a total of, on the building grants, we have a total of 5 of those, totaling $61,995. And we have 1 4-year tax rebate that has been approved. And over the next 4 years, that will provide a total of $184,000 in tax rebates. So funding still remains at $1.2 million left in the building incentives, and just over $9 million left allowable for tax rebate. So overall, summarizing activity to date, we have the 6 approved applications. We've also have approximately 6 general inquiries. These are high-level process questions or high-level just determining whether they might be eligible with no specific project in mind. And that leaves us with 11 then project-specific inquiries. The breakdown of those is here. So in total, 25 inquiries, 6 have been approved. 2 applications, and you heard of those this morning. 2 of those were denied for the reasons you heard this morning. And of the 11 inquiries that we have fielded, remaining inquiries, 5 of those, if we were to receive an application, are probable that they would qualify, and 6 have been determined that they would not be eligible. So overall, we're quite pleased with the attention that the DIG program has received. We are fully expecting that there will be more applications in 2022 than we received in the last half of 2021. So quick update. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take those now.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Mr. Sheldon, for the information. Could you do me a favor and show your last screen? But I don't know if it's internally or through yourself. Can you make it so that we can see all the data, including the totals?
Whereabouts is it cutting off for you?
All the totals. Across the bottom, sorry.
So do you see 19, total 19?
No. I see partial of a 1 and a partial 9, but it's the percentages that I can't. I'm thinking. So it's 6 applicants that were approved, which is 75% of them.
That's right.
2 denied and 25, 5 45, and 6 55. Is that what it is?
That's correct. Yes. Sorry, I'm not sure why that's cutting off.
It's okay. It's just the side of the screen. It might just be my screen. Okay. I think Corbin's just fixing it. There we go. Thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor Laners.
Yes, thank you, Chad, for that information. I'm not all that familiar with the program in terms of length of program. Is there a sunset clause on this? Is there an expiry of when all this ends, or does it go on indefinitely until the money's used up?
Right. So good question. So through the chair, so the residential programs, so residential infill, municipal fee rebate, and business revitalization. The application date expires December 30th, 2022, and the tax rebate incentives are expired December 30th, 2025.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. No motions or questions, just a comment. I think the intent of the development incentive grant, from my recollection from last council, was truly that, to incentivize grants. I'd like a little, and I don't know, I asked Director Glavin, what can committee do or council do to get more information in regards to the discussing the not eligible? Would you like to see us, I'm curious what the levers are for the criteria to be more flexible. I don't want to go back and give money just because somebody was going to do something, but if these development incentive grants, from my understanding, are to get projects to the finish line or over the finish line, then, you know, being 45, 55, it's pretty close to not getting projects over the finish line. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. So I think we could have a motion to have administration bring back a report on the reasons for why applications have been refused or denied. And we could discuss some of those reasons and see if that is meeting the intent of the policy or whether or not the policy should be revised.
Perfect. I would take Director Glavin's motion and put my name in front of it, if that's okay. Thanks.
That motion is in order. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton's in favor.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that report, Mr. Sheldon. And we'll now, there is no correspondence. There's no other business. There's no bylaw or policy review. We'll go to point 7, outstanding items list. Director Glavin.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. I don't believe we have any changes to the outstanding items list at this time.
I will entertain a motion for accepting that. Councillor Lainers.
Items, sorry.
Items list. Thank you. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton votes in favor.
Boy, the system's slow today.
Internet doesn't like 30 below.
Yeah. Oh. It crashed me. Anyway, that is carried unanimously. And before we adjourn the meeting, Director Glavin.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. There is one thing I just wanted to, a very brief, give council heads up that the snow and ice control policies are due by the end of June. At the next meeting, we're going to bring back an interim update just to check in, make sure we're on the right track with committee. As 5 of the members of this council were not involved in that discussion. As well, we'll give kind of a brief overview of the snow removal process while we're at it. So that'll come on the next committee agenda.
Thank you, Director Glavin. And now we'll adjourn the meeting. And how long of a break?
Sorry, I apologize. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We'll be back at, let's call it 12:50.
Thank you. We'll be back at 12:50. Thank you.